Nice. I'm gonna say hi to some folks. I see some folks I haven't talked to in too long joining on. Hello, Josh. Hello, Lisa. Hi, Stacy. Many others I'm sure I've met, and if I don't mean to ignore anybody by not saying hello, but it's good to see you all again.
Hey, Brent, good to see you too.
Hey. Oh, there's Brian. Great to have everybody back. We've been off for a little while.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, yeah. Lots happened since we last met, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, great. Well, my clock says about 12:32. I'm sure we'll have others join on as they free up from their meetings. We have about 18 so far, so it's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you for joining on today. We're going to have just an hour and a half here of good, solid content. Everything will be recorded. The slides that we show will definitely be made available on our user group site after the meeting. So hopefully you'll get a lot of learning from this time that you get to spend here and even afterward. If you're new to the group, I would like to just take a moment to say welcome and glad that you are joining us for the first time. This is a great group of individuals, professionals who really we've enjoyed meeting together in person all the way through March of last year, and all through 2020 have kept on meeting online. Every month we get together and once quarterly for a longer kind of all-day meeting. And I'll tell you more about February's plans at the end of the meeting. But yeah, so just want to say welcome. This is a nice place to learn, a nice place to ask any questions. There are no bad questions. Everyone's at different experience levels and daily uses with Power BI. Maybe some people are just thinking about it or evaluating it, comparing it to other options out there, and that's great too. So just a nice way to connect, probably especially welcome and refreshing at a time like this when some of us are going without social contacts we're kind of used to having. So it's especially nice to get together a little bit, even virtually. So like we mentioned in today's meeting, it'll be a 90-minute meeting going from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. There we go. After I get done with my little updates for you, April Dunham, who is a partner technical architect with Microsoft and who actually was running ThriveFast, or a partner at ThriveFast up until last year, and was an MVP in Power Apps, is going to share with us kind of some of the latest on Power Apps, Dataverse, which we talked about a little bit even in November, or in one of our meetings that Jeremy talked to us about, and
Yeah.
also kind of show how Power Apps and Power BI can integrate. Go ahead, Jeremy. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I at the time that I gave the presentation about Dataverse, it was actually, they were still trying to decide what to call it. So if you are looking at any of our videos on the user group YouTube site, that's going to be called Project Oakdale. But it's since been renamed to Dataverse. And I just want to follow on what Brent was saying about, some of the benefits that we're trying to create for our users here. Brent, did you plan on talking about office hours?
No, you please do that. That would be great. Yeah.
So one of the things that Brent and I have kind of started talking about is making one of the two of us available for a couple of hours each week to our user group members. And this is going to be a great session, because what we plan on doing is using a Power App. We're going to create a reservation Power App that our user group members will be able to go in and say, okay, I want to schedule this 30-minute session or hour-long session with Brent or Jeremy to work through some issue that I'm having, whether this is some DAX that you're having trouble writing, or data modeling question, connecting to data, whatever it is. We're trying to just provide some more value, like I said, to our user group members. And so we're going to, we want to start trying to do those office hours, hopefully, I mean, as soon as possible, but certainly in this first quarter at some point. gonna put a kind of a broad range on it, but we'll send out an email to everyone to kind of let you know this is available. Here's the reservation form that you can use, and again, what April will be talking about today will be very very relevant to that, because we'll use Power Apps to create that reservation form.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we'll let you know about those office hours, and I think what we're planning to do is, well, like Jeremy said, we'll have a form, so it's not like, hey, everyone has to be here at a certain time, and if no one needs any help that that week or that time slot, that's no problem. We'll let it slide. But wanted to kind of make special times to deep dive on individual issues. Yeah, one thing I feel compelled to mention, to give you a preview on, is that the Dynamic Communities group is who is the sponsor for these Microsoft user groups, both for Microsoft Dynamics, that's the name, and for the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. They are really changing their platform for the website. It's not an earth-shattering event, but it looks a lot different. So I'd like to give you just a quick preview of the differences and kind of what to expect when they make that change. I think that change is still a ways off based on what I'm seeing on the new sites, but I'll show you what it looks like. Let's see. There we go. So our existing site, just confirming, did everybody see the existing Power BI user group site?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. Looks like this. It's not beautiful, but it's functional. We have a community home, and you can kind of see some announcements up here. This is where I come in and I kind of schedule our meetings. And when I set a new meeting, everybody gets an email who has registered here. And there was a time that you had to sign up here to get involved in the meetings. Since this time, we've also got a meetup page, and I just put the meetings in both places. That way, no matter which platform you might be on or using, there you'll hopefully see about it. This is kind of the host for our discussion boards and our files and things like that. And in order to see the files, you do have to get an account created and sign in. I'm actually not even signed in right now. So it is kind of hard to navigate, but it's been functional, and at least I'm used to it. Maybe some other folks are, from going to look for the files. The new look is it is more modern looking, and you can tell it's going to be really great, but it looks a lot different. So like when you come to the home page on their new site, first of all, you get a quick sense immediately that, hey, you've got all these different user groups that we're supporting. Okay, that might be cool if you need to get involved in another Dynamics group, or Power Automate or Power Apps as well. But it just looks so much different. So you'll have to kind of find the local user group, our local user group, and actually you're already going to be a part of it. So you find it by clicking up here on these DAC channels. Oh yeah, I should mention that. They kind of are rebranding to call it Decision Acceleration Community. So don't get confused. It's just, someone said, why don't you just call it a user group? And they said, well, you can still call it a user group. Okay, still a user group. All right. There you see the word DAC, they're just talking about user groups. Okay. And but under these channels, easier to find, maybe easier to find a few things. Certainly they promote their events more prominently. So, like when is the big event going to be for Summit North America? And they're kind of doing actually on January 28th, what they're calling a binge day, which I think, oops, sorry, just means a whole bunch of videos like this apparently. So if you're interested in kind of listening to checking out some things from this group, then they have this series of videos available to us. So it looks pretty high level, digital transformation, dynamics in general, CRM kind of stuff. So but to find our user group, you click DAC channels and click local user groups, and it's under there. So, well, I'll remind you guys of that next month too, so you don't have to remember it all right now. It is definitely have a better modern feel to it, maybe a little easier to find what you're looking for ultimately, but none of our content is here yet. So I even tried scheduling a meeting here just to see what would happen, and no notices went out. So there's still, they got a ways to go still, but this eventually will happen. They eventually will turn this site off once they have all the content migrated. So I feel like I need to give you a little heads up. All right, there's that. That's pretty straightforward. Next on our agenda, let me share this screen now, and let's talk about a couple of the key features here that came to Power BI in December of 2020. There's not going to be a January release, probably because maybe they gave themselves a little slacker on the holidays, but also because December was a very milestone release for Power BI. The biggest feature that I would want to make sure everybody in our group is aware of is innocuously named Direct Query to Power BI and Analysis Services. Pretty technical mouthful. But what that actually means is that now you can connect live to a published Power BI dataset and supplement that live connection with local data or imported data from another source. Again, maybe that doesn't set off the bells of like, hey, this is significant. But if you have tried before opening up Power BI desktop and saying, hey, I want to use one of my published data sets from the service. If you've tried that, it's sure it's worked fine. You get connected, and then you want to add a column or see the data preview and things like that. And you can't make any changes to that published model. It's sort of like you're read-only querying it out of a database. This will allow you to build composite models with some data is in Power BI service and some data is local. And so it'll be quite a game changer in terms of how we publish and use Power BI data sets. I have a couple of extra slides on that, but so we'll come back around and get everybody's comments if anyone's using it already or things like that. It is in preview, but it has been in the works for a long time, so I doubt it will be in preview for very, very long. The other thing I just wanted to mention this month is that they're coming up with a new SKU for Power BI Premium, and it's called Power BI Premium per user. So essentially you can get premium without paying that big premium cost of at least $4,000 a month is about the list price. You can do it on a per user basis. So if you're a small organization, but you want the benefits of premium, you'll be able to do that. They haven't announced what the price will be. It's reasonable. It will be more than $10 a month, probably less than 40, just based on kind of the math. But something in that range. But it's free right now. So if you want to try it and say, hey, is premium for us, or should we look at this premium per user thing? You can sign up through, I think, Azure, because it's an Azure product, and it won't cost you anything, at least through February. So watch out for when it goes live, because then it will start charging you. But, let's talk about this direct query thing again for just 1 second. I'll give my comments, and then I'll kind of open it up to y'all see what questions or if it makes sense. This picture sort of is describing, hey, I've got Power BI data sets out in the service. I'd like to think of some of them as, okay, this is my firm enterprise model. It's got all my company measures. It's got the right data. They have good column descriptions, maybe even good metadata behind them. And all the transformations are done. And that's really useful unless, like I mentioned, people then, what happens when an analyst in your company wants to take that published enterprise model and make it better or tweak it just slightly? I think the only thing that they've been able to do so far is either download the PBIX file, start from scratch. Maybe you could make it a template that you published. Okay, yeah, go ahead and start with this template import, but then they publish it, and then you've kind of got 2 copies of your enterprise model out there, right? Unless your data set was totally complete, as every column, every calculation, all the formats are right, every piece of information, then that wasn't as useful of a scenario as it could be. Now they hope that what we can do is we can publish these very, very robust, but maybe not complete for every possible scenario, semantic models, and then people can connect to those live and kind of add their own data to it, and start to make their own reports. To bring that home a little more, this is a clip from a guy in a cube video, so I don't want to, pirate or anything here. Here's the link to that video, but just needed a quick screen grab to kind of show, like, here's an example of what it looks like when we have a direct query connection to a published Power BI model, but then they're also kind of bringing in their own stuff from Excel. You can make relationships between these tables. You can it doesn't really matter that one's imported and one is direct query. It's starting to figure out how to handle it in the scenes, behind the scenes. So let me just kind of pause there. Anybody want to add anything or ask any questions?
Well, so yeah, I mean, what this really enables us to do, and so we're talking about a semantic model. Like, what does that mean? What is a semantic model? Well, really, we're kind of looking at it right now. It is the fields that we want to drag and drop onto our canvas to start creating visualizations, right? And the semantic model means that these fields have meaning to your end users. And so what this really is going to enable organizations to do is create, for example, this one product data set that everyone in your organization can then go out and use. So this is our certified product data set for our organization, so that we don't have analysts having to recreate this. We're not duplicating data in our Power BI tenant. And so we can put that out there, certify it, and really this is going to allow companies to create their data catalog directly there in the Power BI service. So that is really how I'm viewing this, and maybe just another way to kind of already say what Brent has been describing. So this is a huge announcement, and certainly something that I can see a lot of value in.
Yeah, it might change your strategy inside your organization about how you handle the life cycle of Power BI assets or data sets that get created. I did see on the comments on the blog that somebody was like, that's fantastic, but I don't really know that we actually have ALM, which would sort of, it means application lifecycle management, and would kind of imply that we have some kind of source control. And they're like, I don't really think we have good source control on Power BI yet. And if anybody knows of a better solution, I'm open to it, but I haven't, it's not really where like every part of it is in Git or something.
Yeah,
but
I
you would control the version somehow, is the idea.
Yeah, I do know that there is a form for those who are on like a premium. There is a form of ALM for Power BI, so we can say, we can have that tiered environment, the development environment, the stage, the production environment, whatever. But this is going to go a long way, in my opinion, of supporting and empowering the data governance around your Power BI data sets.
Mm-hmm. And then you might consider how you would couple this with what they call data set classification. So in addition to all the user-generated content that your organization might already have, maybe you have 50 data sets out there in the Power BI service. Maybe now in a workspace, one of them is tagged, here's the official sales data set. So whoever's wanting to get started, connect to that sales data set, and then see what you can do from there. Yeah, that certainly could be helpful. Just one tip I know that some folks from Quick Trip shared with us was they came up with a few little icons, and whenever they had a report that was officially certified, they would put that IT certified or production enterprise stamp on it. And then if it was a test report, then they would put that on there. So it made a lot of sense to come up with little icons or badges like that. Okay, so there's definitely a link to that Guy in a Cube video that's great. There's also a nice video from Alberto Ferrari, one of the SQL BI guys who's a very respected member in this community, who is excited about. He was very excited about it. Laura, I see in the chat that your hand is up. Did you want to chime in on this? Laura Gambino? Maybe I got that wrong. Oh, you're joining on video. Hey, but I don't think we can hear you yet, Laura. Oh, we heard you, I think, right?
No,
that was just you,
no,
Jeremy.
still can't.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I saw your thumbs down. Thanks. Whenever you can get on the audio, we'd love to hear your comments. Sorry about that. Or if you want to chat it to me, I'm happy to read it. But just meanwhile, I'll kind of move on to the next feature. But please don't feel like we're leaving that behind. Oh yeah, it was Power BI Premium per user. So yeah, let's just, Laura, I'll give you a second if you don't mind. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. Well, sorry, nothing's coming through quite yet. So, yeah, and so okay, yeah. One other feature that I forgot to list here is something called small multiples. That's also another thing. I'll put a link in here too. But let me share my screen one more time over there. And there we go. Hi, April. Hey, April. Welcome to the meeting.
Hey.
Hey, I'm going to show a little bit, just a quick screenshot about small multiples, and then probably we'll be just about ready to turn it over to you if that works.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Thanks. So yeah, this picture is a bit small, isn't it? The idea is you can start to take your visuals, and when I started using a tool called Spotfire a long time ago, and they called this trellising the visual, but pretty much like breaking it out. So in this small picture, they, instead of breaking it out, okay, we're going to cluster the column or we're going to stack the column, you can actually break it out into multiple charts that are, kind of on different axes. Goodness, you'd think I know how to zoom in and out in the browser, wouldn't you? There you go. I do have a scroll wheel mouse. So in this case, they've taken this chart and broken out, okay, the different countries become kind of the rows and columns, but they keep the same categories underneath. So kind of a neat way, actually, so it's 6 countries here, broken out into rows and columns. So that's what they mean by small multiples. Pretty neat. If you've used this feature in other visual tools, you'll be familiar with it. So that's a preview feature you can turn on as well, but definitely recommend the December update because they have a lot of good stuff in here now to start checking out. Any other new features or new, Power BI world updates that anyone would like to highlight or share? Well, kind of as a tie-in, I noticed on data connectivity that they have a Dataverse connector now, so that's kind of cool. All right. Well, that's a perfect segue, I think, into, let's see here, into April's presentation. So as I mentioned, let me share this again. April is a partner technical architect with Microsoft, and she was a partner at her own consulting firm up until I think last year. Is that right, April?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
So I've been here about a year now. So.
Nice. Yeah. So then she joined Microsoft proper, and they were already helping her. I mean, she was already helping them so much. I think they figured, why don't you just come work for us? And April and her partner are great experts in Power Apps, Dataverse. She's done some really neat videos talking about the new lists features that have been coming into Teams. They do a lot of work in Teams and Office 365 and SharePoint. So really excited to have April here to present with us. And April, I'm going to make you a co-host here, which I think is a requisite to share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to share, and I'll stop sharing, and with that, just would like to welcome you to our meeting.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I could finally make it. I know I've had a few attempts of trying to share here, and my schedule is always a little bit crazy. So I made it. All right. Yeah. So kind of what I want to talk about today is some of the, what I'm titling Power Apps features you need to know about. So I'm going to cover some of the new things that have been released in the past couple months that I think are pretty cool. And if you're building Power Apps that you'll want to keep an eye out for, and then even a couple related to Power BI as well. So then I'll have plenty of time at the end for some Q&A. Hopefully we'll have lots of Power Apps related questions that you'll want to go over here. First one I want to talk about, which is pretty cool, is the geospatial features are now generally available. So there are two different controls in Power Apps that we get now. So one is the address input control. So kind of like you're seeing there in the top right screenshot there, you can start typing in an address and it will automatically look and find the recommended locations. So this is really, really useful, something that we didn't have previously. So something that, in lots of applications, you want to use. Along those same lines, we have a new interactive map component. So prior to this, if you wanted to do something like this, you'd have to go use a custom component or maybe integrate with like a connector with Bing Maps. Well, this is all a native interactive component now that we can add to have a map view of information that we can interact with throughout our Power Apps. So two great new features that if we have time, I might show a little demo of just how they work here towards the end. Another one related to model-driven apps. So I don't know if any of you who have built any Power Apps have used the push notification ability that it has. I have in some of the Canvas apps that I built before. So pretty cool as far as you can have like a flow that runs and sends a notification via Power Apps on your mobile device or tablet so that you can go and open your application. Traditionally, this was only available for our Canvas app based Power Apps, but now we have support for model-driven apps that can leverage this functionality as well. So something that you can start taking advantage of for your model-driven apps. So this one along the lines of debugging, this is a common hurdle that we have to uncover here when we're working with Power Apps is how do we troubleshoot if something is wrong, or maybe it's just loading really slow, or you click a button and nothing happens. So now Power Apps Monitor is the solution to that, and it's generally available as of, I think, December. So this is going to give us a rich troubleshooting and debugging, so we can view a stream of events from a user session so that we can diagnose issues. Another cool feature is integrated within this, you'll see a connect user button. So you can share a link to a user, maybe that's having the issue that you want to help debug and troubleshoot it, and that will link them to the application with a monitor session attached so that you can easily troubleshoot that with them and see what's going on. So a really powerful functionality. And this is a big area with Power Apps that they're investing in, right? We kind of have a good basis of functionality of what we can do. Well, now how can we help the troubleshooting, more the administration and the development story of Power Apps? So you'll see a lot of investment in those areas, and this is just one of those.
April, what kind of output do you get from that monitor tool?
So you can get like an inline, kind of like you're seeing there, like a list there, but you can export that to Excel so that you can, or a CSV file so that you can kind of inspect it further.
Neat.
Yeah, good question. So have any of you on here, because I know it relates to Power BI as well, use the Power Platform Center of Excellence at all or installed that? Okay, so we call it the COE for short. So it's a toolkit that Microsoft provides as an add-on that you can install in your Power Platform environment. And it helps you give more, get you more analytics and insight into your environment to help you govern and manage it. So lots of features in this one COE toolkit, as we call it. So it actually includes a Power BI dashboard that gives you a holistic view of how many Power Apps do you have, how many flows, how many Power BI dashboards, what's out there, what connectors are you using most, help you manage DLP policies and things like that. So you get all that functionality in this, and they're constantly adding things to it as well. One of the cool things that they just added is what they're calling the Innovation Backlog app template as part of this solution. So if you're really trying to grow your Power Platform usage, this is a great app template that you can install for free with this COE toolkit that gives you a mechanism for users to request maybe applications or Power BI dashboards or reports or flows that they would want that would help them. So you can have this dashboard to see the submitted ideas and kind of work those into your queue. So free to install here. There's a link in the slides, which I can provide here after this, so you can see how to download that and start using it. Oh, a Power BI related thing here. So we have general availability of Power BI dashboards as system dashboards in our model-driven Power Apps applications. These are really good for, say, your transactional data that needs to be updated directly on the report. So, you know, well, that's backwards. That's weird. I think I rotated the image. Sorry about that. You know, we could embed Power BI dashboards, but not as system dashboards. So now we can take advantage of this, say like when an action occurs on a record, we can see that as a dashboard, and it also has ALM support. So we can use the environment variables in our solutions to set some default values in this.
So I might need to ask about that one too, April, if you don't mind. Just kind of curious about like what makes a system dashboard in a Power App there, or yeah.
Just gives you a little bit more like information and data that you can connect to within the entities that you're showing, pretty much. So it's like just a very small difference than, you know, just say a regular dashboard, but it's more integrated kind of dashboard in a model-driven app than, say, just embedding a report or a dashboard that you built. Okay, this is another cool one with Power BI. I don't know, have any of you used the Power BI integration with Microsoft Teams at all? Cool. Yeah, we use that a lot, obviously, here at Microsoft. I used it a lot too at my previous company. We're living in Teams these days. So there's been some major improvement with the integration story with Power BI and Teams. So if you haven't checked out the Power BI app in Teams in a while, it's had a major upgrade, just making it easier to find and discover reports and dashboards in that. And there's also a new search experience as well. So if you've ever tried to use the Teams search up there, you might notice wasn't the best traditionally when trying to find like Power BI content. So now that's all fully integrated. So you can search with the native Teams search and find Power BI content and reports and dashboards and all of that. There's also a cool chat experience within Power BI. So you can actually find and share Power BI content directly in a Teams chat. So if I'm having a conversation with Brent, for example, and I want to reference a dashboard so you can see more information, I can do that directly in the chat with chat message actions, kind of like what you're seeing there. And we can start these chats in Teams when viewing reports and dashboards. So if you're on a screen like this where you have a dashboard open, you can have a pop-out chat and start a conversation on that. A new thing that's coming as well, this hasn't been released yet. Everything else I just talked about is currently there and released, but one that's coming is this data set discovery experience so that we can actually find data that we could use to create reports in Excel workbooks. I'm really excited about that one. I think that's going to be really cool once it's released. I think that still has a few more months though before that's available to start testing.
Do they think that data set discovery, will that focus on Power BI data sets or does it have a broader scope than that?
I think from what I understand, it has a broader scope than that. So it's
Okay.
going to help you find, like data sets across your organization. Cool. So this is getting more into the developer-y side of things with Power Platform. Like I said, this is another big investment area that they're making that you'll see a common thread in here. GitHub integration. So when you're trying to really, deploy things out in scale, or if you're using GitHub, say for your Power Platform assets, or maybe just custom code, there's a GitHub connector that we can take advantage of in both Power Apps and Power Automate, where we can do things like, creating GitHub repos, creating, merging pull requests, comparing commits, and that pairs really well with the GitHub Actions for Power Platform. So with those GitHub Actions for Power Platform, we're actually able to do like CI, continuous CI and CO with our Power Platform solutions. So it's just something I noticed that this has been out, I think, actually for several months now, but they've recently added some more actions that we can do with the GitHub connector. It's really, really powerful if you're using GitHub, in your company or in your environment. This is another big one from a developer standpoint. This just came out last week, I believe. We now have the ability to use source code files for Canvas apps. So this is really huge if you're, either a developer or you're just wanting to, better manage your code in Power Apps. So we can actually use GitHub for our Canvas applications and unpack our solutions and manage them all in GitHub, kind of like you're seeing here. So we're able to unpack that MS app file. It'll extract all the different elements, and we could say change our formulas in our code in Visual Studio Code, upload that to GitHub, repackage it, and deploy our updates, right? So this is, it's very, very new functionality. So there's probably going to be a few bugs. It's experimental right now. So it's probably not something you go out and start using actively in your production environment, but I definitely encourage you just to test it out if it's something you're interested in, because this is going to be something that's going to be really powerful as it's fully released to help us manage our applications.
That does look like a nice solution, and I can see how. So it looks like right now you kind of have to do that manually a little bit, right? That's a bit of a kind of a manual step process, but you can see how they would automate it over time, where it was like automatically kind of unpacking it and repacking it for you or something like
Yeah.
that. And they need this for Power BI and automate too. So this is kind of what I was meaning, earlier by being like, I don't know if we have true source control. That's what we could use this in the Power BI world for sure to.
Yeah. I mean,
take
I would
the-
suspect if, they're doing it with Power Apps that, might be something eventually, who knows,
Maybe.
that comes with Power BI and Power Automate both. We could hope, right?
Mhm.
And the big one I wanted to focus on today. So 3 words, Dataverse for Teams. Hopefully you've all heard about it, but it's really, really powerful. So it's you get the power of Dataverse, aka Common Data Service, plus the collaborative platform that Microsoft Teams offers at no additional cost. So this is huge. We know if we wanted to consume the Common Data Service, Dataverse, entities and tables like that with our applications, whether it's a Flow or a Power App or Power BI dashboard, that put us into premium licensing territory, right? We had to pay for those upgraded licenses. Well, if we're doing all of that, say creating a Canvas app or a Flow or even a Power Virtual Agent bot, if we're doing all that within the context of Teams, that means we can leverage this Dataverse database at no additional cost. Whatever licensing gives you Teams, you'll be covered to create and use these applications. So it really opens the doors to, build better applications with like a true relational database like Dataverse is within Teams. So it's really bridging that gap where, say, people are maybe using SharePoint as the end all be all as their data source for their Power Apps, just to get around licensing, right? This is solving that gap to where now you can have a better database that's going to help you build more scalable solutions and use that all within Teams. So I'm really excited about this. And it's not just Power Apps, like I said, we're also getting Power Virtual Agents with this. So if you haven't looked at that, it's a way to create low-code chatbots in the Power Platform. So that's bots arguably our best fit in Teams, right? That's a really logical place where you might interact with a bot. You see that quite a bit. So the ability to create bots without having to write code and use something like PVA is really huge. And something really new that they just announced is now, so when it was first released, you kind of were limited to using these applications or bots with the members of one certain team. Now we can share those beyond the members of a team to an entire organization, which is what this blog post is talking about. So we can create a truly enterprise level application that everyone in your org could use in Dataverse or Teams and share it out.
Is that available now?
Yes, this is generally available. So everyone should have it in their environment. And actually with that, I was just going to go into a quick demo just to show kind of what it looks like and how you would access that. So everything, obviously, since this is Teams-based, is done within Teams, and this will work either in the web client or the desktop application of Teams. But first thing you'll want to do is download the underlying applications within Teams so that you can use it and install those as what we call personal apps. So to do that, you can click these 3 dots and just search for, we'll start with Power Apps since that's probably the most common use case for the Power Apps application here. And that will install that and pin that here to your left rail so that you can interact with it. Now, this is meant for Teams. So like the apps you build in here can't be used outside of Teams. All of your interaction with it will be in Teams, just an FYI on that. But as we can see here, what a great way to get started just to see the power of this is with the sample apps that they provide. So we have employee ideas, inspection, and issue reporting. So they're great templates to get started and see how they work. So I've installed a couple of them here. So if we go to the build tab, for example, I'll explain at a higher level how this is kind of broken out. When you decide you want to build a Power Apps application within this Dataverse for Teams functionality, you'll first associate it with a given team that you've created. So that's why on the left here, this is a list of all the teams that I have, which currently have Power Apps or Dataverse for Teams assets built in them. So I can kind of navigate around to the different ones and see here on the right what has been created within that team. So generally that's how that works. Sometimes it's a little slow here on my connection, so let me give it time here. And then you can either interact with these and pin them on the left or like we're seeing here, or as a tab in your Teams channels. So 2 different ways that you can interact with that. Let's see, I want to see where I have this one sample solution installed really quick. So one problem with using it so much, you got to remember where everything is. That's not it. Might be this one.
April, just to check on the licensing on this, like you were saying, is it sort of like everybody with a Teams license has access to create these apps?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Anyone with the Teams license has access to create and to use these applications. How the permissions work, like at a higher level, just permissions itself, is it's respecting the Teams permissions of owners, members, and guests. So you can kind of fine tune what an owner can do versus what a member can do versus what a guest can do. So, which is pretty cool. So actually what I'll do is I'll just walk through installing one of these since we have a little bit of time here. The inspection one is a pretty cool template, so it'll be good to show. So all we have to do, it's all done with Teams. We click add to a team, and this is where we would search for the team that we want to add it to. So I'll just do this crisis information one and click set up a tab. So this will completely install the application for me. I can choose whether to post to the channel that this new application has been added or not and click save, and it'll run in the background and create the application. And you see that it's taking me directly to the channel I selected within the team, and it's going to automatically add this application as a tab so I can start using it. Like I said, this will just take a little bit. You'll have a status kind of progress bar at the bottom as it goes through and installs the app. And you can navigate away and do what you need to do there. I've built one. This is a holiday theme one. You know, Christmas is over, but like this is an app I built in Dataverse for Teams here that I've embedded. That's just a gift exchange, like a basic Secret Santa application, right? So you could have one of the things that you'll notice right away is these applications that you build versus say going out to the Power Apps portal and building one there look like they're native Teams apps. The color scheme, everything, the width and height look exactly like a Teams app. And if I were to expand this down, for example, you'll see that it's responsive out of the box. So that's one of the really cool things. This will work both in Teams desktop or the mobile client. So these will be responsive, fully functional Teams apps when you build it this way. I have the employee ideas template. So this was another one of the templates out there that'll give you a feel for how these look. I have installed on this one. So this one's pretty cool. So you can have a nice dashboard type screen here where you can see, say, top contributors and ideas, and you can select a certain campaign. So maybe we want to have a campaign about getting ideas for, you know, cafe food. So we can see the different campaigns and then the ideas that we have, and we can do things like we can upvote this idea if we like it so that we can manage it. And then we can submit new ideas all through this Power App. So this is just all a Power App that looks like a native Teams app. And because we're using Dataverse as the database for this, we have all the rich data types like we expect that we can easily use, like being able to upload an image. So we can point directly here to an image and that uploads, and then files are supported natively as well. So we can have file attachments without having to do anything extra. We just say, add the file data type, you know, as a column in my database, or add the image data type in my database, and that's all integrated, which is really nice. Yep. And there's built-in integration with Teams as well. Since these are Teams-based Power Apps, you see we have this toggle here to share in a channel. So if I toggle that on or off behind the scenes, that's going to post a message to a Teams channel that we have a new idea. So I'll just put new idea on some random stuff, submit it, and we'll see a message come across here in our general channel and posts that we have a new idea posted. So really kind of seamless integration, thanks to the Teams connector. We get a nice welcome screen message, and yeah, there's the idea posted almost instantly with a Teams connector in there.
So April, is this, where does the data go? Where does the data actually go? Or is that kind of a silly question in these days?
Yeah, so let's open up the Power Apps app again and we'll take a look. It's a great question. And oh, Sandra has a hand raised too. I don't know if you have a question.
She typed in the chat, is this in preview? Was kind of her. Oh, go ahead, Sandra. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. That was about another question. But this, I was just wondering, because like it creates its own environment. So how would you share it beyond that particular team?
Yeah, great question. That's what I was going to show. If it'll.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I was definitely getting to that because that's a new feature that was just added that I did want to show. Here we go. Okay, so we're back in the Power Apps application then. So we built that. Let's take the Secret Santa app, I guess, right? That I showed. We did that nice little demo. Maybe I'll address where's the data stored first, and then I'll show how to share it. So where's the data stored? Well, first, once we're in here within our team, let's click this See All because we get a better view of all the different assets we have in this given environment. So we'll be able to see, break it down onto like what apps do we actually have and chatbots and flows. And then we have this table section. So this is where the data is actually going to be stored. And this is Dataverse, right? So it's, AKA Common Data Service. That's where your data is stored in tables here. It's important to know too, you don't have to only submit your data and have your data in Dataverse for Teams. You can mix and match. So if you needed to pull information from SharePoint or Azure SQL or wherever, we still have the ability with these apps to pull information from all the other different connectors that we have access to in the full-blown Power Apps application. Okay. Of course, you have licensing if you're using a premium connector. At that point, you would still have to pay extra. So what this is getting you is just the ability to use Dataverse for Teams and Azure API management. You don't have to pay for those, but anything else that's premium, you'll still have to pay. So another important thing to distinguish. But for my Secret Santa application, I just have a participants and a pairs and an events table. So if we kind of look at how the tables look here, let's go to the events one first. Looks very similar, kind of same concept of CDS, aka Dataverse that we see here. So we can have our views, our relationships, and our columns. So we can come in here and edit data. And this is where the experience looks a little bit different than if you've used native old school CDS. It kind of looks like modern SharePoint list if you've messed with that at all. So we have all of our columns here. We can see the data that's been submitted. And we can even add new columns by just clicking this plus and choosing the data type and building out our table really seamlessly and easily here and managing the data. We can show and hide and all of that and refresh our data and add columns from here. So we have everything that you would expect in Dataverse when we click on the column types in this view. So this is where we could choose files and lookups, so we can have relationships and images and everything. So it's really just, the only difference between Dataverse for Teams and the full-fledged version of database is capacity and a little bit of capability. So you can do almost everything, but when you get to things like, well, I want to do really granular permissions, like item level permissions, or if I want to do things like offline mode support, that's stuff that we can't do in Dataverse for Teams, but we can in the full version of Dataverse. So there could be a point in time to where, depending on your functionality, you might need to scale out of, say, a Dataverse for Teams into a full-fledged version. In capacity, you get 1 million records per environment within this. So it's quite a bit, but that could be another case where you might need to outscale, say, a Dataverse for Teams app to a full-fledged Dataverse, right? But same functionality as far as tables and what type of columns and relationships and everything that we have in the normal Dataverse. So as far as sharing, there's a two-step approach to sharing these outside of members of the team. Its first step is it starts at the table level where we're at now. So you might notice that there's this manage permissions button in the ribbon here when I'm in this table. So if I click that, that's where I can define. I first need to say if the app that I want to share has 3 different tables in it. I need to go into each table like I have here, and I need to define, first of all, the members, what access they should have. There's 4 main buckets, as you see. Full access, you can do anything. Collaborate, you can create records and read them, but you can only update and delete your own records, right? We have reference, which is a read-only, strict read-only, and then we have private, where you can create new records, read your own records, but you can only update and delete your own. So you can kind of see the differences here. Now, when it comes to sharing outside the team, that's where this colleagues with access bucket comes into play. So if we click on that right now, we can see that that's set to none. So if I know I want to share this with people outside, I'll have to change the permission group to whatever permission set I want them to have. So possibly this collaborate one, for example, and click save. And I'll do that for each table that the app consumes. Now, the last step of this would be to go into the app itself and share that out. So what I'll do is I'll go back up here to my Secret Santa and I'll find my Secret Santa application. We'll go to see all actually, because that's where we need to go to get the button, and we'll go to apps, and here's my Secret Santa app. So I'll click on that and I'll say add to teams, right? Then I'll go to download application, and that's going to download a copy of my app. And well, actually, there's a better way to do this. Sorry. That's a different way. Sorry about that. Forget that I just said that. The better way to do it would be to click share with colleagues here under apps. This is the new way. That was the old school way. And what you'll do is you'll toggle the application that you want to share. So here's my Secret Santa application that we looked at. And we have to say, do we want colleagues to be able to use this? So if I turn it to on, they can use that one and off. And then we'll put in here in this box here, a security group. So that's where we can designate. So if you have a security group for everyone in your organization, you can put that in here, and then that means that everyone will be able to see this application and use it, right? This is new functionality. So right now you're limited to only putting a single security group in here. So if you wanted to share with different security groups and mix and match, we can't do that at the moment, unfortunately, but I suspect that that is something that could be added eventually. So that's what I did here. I've shared it with the Secret Santa group. And then once you do that, where it will show up so people can actually use it is in the Teams App Store. So everyone could go to the Teams App Store link at the bottom left, like we're seeing here, and go to this built for, and that will have your tenant name section. And we'll see 2 different buckets here. So we have built by your org, and then we have this built by your colleagues. So any solution you built in Dataverse for Teams will show here in this new section of built by your colleagues. So I can look through here. You see I have quite a bit. Click show more. I can find that Secret Santa app somewhere within my millions of applications and click on it, and that would add that. I'm not seeing it, but here's one of them. Yeah, there you go. So it'd pop open here and I can say add, and that will show up here on the left-hand side and open up. So now anyone outside the organization can use it. See what else to show. I'll show a quick demo of Power Virtual Agents too and how those work. So same thing, we have our own application for that. So I'm going to open this up, and have any of you like messed with Power Virtual Agents at all? Pretty cool. So same thing with this, you would kind of associate it with the team if you're using this for a Teams chatbot. And it will take you to the authoring canvas. So we'll give our bot a name. We'll call this like crisis bot, since it's for our crisis communication team here. And we'll click create. And the interface for creating these is actually kind of similar to Power Automate. So if you've created flows, it should be pretty intuitive with how you create these bots. But they're organized by these things called topics. So typically with bots, it might be for some kind of FAQ. So you have a question and you have an answer. So you're really just defining, I have a topic of maybe what are my store hours? So what are the possible things, the questions that people could ask, and then pair that with your answers. So it's really as simple as that. And when you create these bots, it kind of gives you some sample topics to help you get started so you can see how it goes. So if we go to Go Topics here, we'll go into lesson 1 because that's a simple topic. And you'll see that we just have trigger phrases, which are what are things people could ask for the spot. So we might ask, in this case, it might be for your store hours. So when are you closed? When are you open? Store hours, daily open hours, right? Now to define, well, what do we want to happen when they say one of those trigger phrases is we go to this authoring canvas. And this is where we get our Power Automate-esque kind of interface here to build out what this bot should do. So we have our trigger of these phrases. Then we can do things like ask a question. So if we need follow-up information, we could do that. We could just show a simple message, or we can call an action. What that's actually doing is these PVA agents just use Power Automate to do all its dirty work, is really behind the scenes. So if your bot needed to go call a web service or go pull information from your Dataverse database or, whatever it might be, right? Or Power BI, who knows? You just say, call a flow, have my flow do all of that like you normally would in Flow and return it back to my bot so I can show it to my user. It's really as simple as that. This particular topic here is just responding with some static text. So I can respond with a message that I'm happy to help. And here's some hard-coded values of what our hours are, because those typically don't change. We can have real-time testing within this bot maker too. So I can say store hours. And just like Flow, when I do that, you'll see we have these check marks. So I can tell, okay, I asked store hours, I got that message and replied back in the bot. So pretty cool. Same thing with this. We can share those externally. We can pin those to left rail. I have a bot here, the Secret Santa gift helper that I've deployed. So it shows here on the left-hand side. It's really simple. So I could say something like gift ideas. And it can reply back and ask, who do you want gift ideas for? So I can put in someone's name. And this is actually calling a flow in the back end to go look up a record in a Dataverse database for that person where I have a list of ideas, and it's returning a hyperlink. So I can go and go out to say an Amazon shopping list from that hyperlink and get some gift ideas. So lots of different use cases or what you can do with these bots, and they're pretty cool and pretty powerful. So those are the main things that I wanted to show. Do we have any questions, anything in the chat here that we wanted to cover?
I see that Jerry asked, can you have a PVA interact with another PVA? So can you remind us what that Power Virtual Agent, right?
Yeah, Power Virtual Agent. Kind of, not really. You can, I guess with Power Automate, since like the underlying architecture is, to do some actions is Power Automate, you could have Power Automate respond back to another PVA potentially. I haven't seen that done, but with the way it's architected, I think that could be a possibility. Interesting question. I can show a little bit more if that's interesting to people of how, the flow, the Power Automate interaction happens with this too, if it'll load back up for me here.
One thing I know I'd be curious to hear, April, is just in your kind of practical real world application and work with customers and clients, what are some examples of Power Apps or Power Apps inside of Teams where you've seen it be very successful?
I've seen, yeah, great question. A lot of different use cases for this, everything from maybe smaller departmental, use cases, like I need something to help me manage my, help desk. So like little help desk applications for IT. I've seen a lot of things like that out there to, full-fledged, crisis management, as we call it, or is kind of big these days with COVID. So I've seen a lot of integrations where like if you need to book a space, I've seen lots of different app samples of that. It's like, how can I book a meeting room for the day or get a day pass to go visit a facility? That's a really, popular use case. Timesheets, time off request, yeah, you name it. There's like just so many, such a great variety of different use cases for that. Really anything. I mean, Teams is a great place for that. Anything that you maybe would have just built in a standalone Power Apps application, there's really no reason it can't be in Teams, because you have Teams can be run on the desktop and the client, and most of your users are probably already in there anyway. So it helps you really also deploy those out more easily. So if we weren't building this, say within Teams, we would have to go manually share our underlying data sources, give everyone access. You'll have to worry about bookmarks too, like, oh, what if the bookmark goes bad? And just like it's a pain to really scale those out and deploy those at scale. So having it in Teams kind of makes that easier. Cool. All right. So yeah, let me dive back into this and I'll show a little bit of that Power Automate integration that I was talking about here. Okay, so let's go to our topics. I'll use this simple topic one again, just because it's easy and convenient. And what I'll do is right between here, I'll do a call and action. And if you click the create a flow, it's actually going to open up Power Automate within Teams so that you can create one of these flows. And there's a template for this. So it's Power Virtual Agents flow template. So it has a trigger of, trigger from a Power Virtual Agent and respond to a Power Virtual Agent. So you just fill in the gaps in the middle. So when it loads up here, there we go. So you can pass in parameters. So if from my bot, it's passing me in some information about, something I might need to use in the flow, I can add an input. So maybe like a text, and I can pull that in. And same thing to return values. If I want to return information, I can add either text, yes, no, or number values. So maybe I'll have one for store hours. Back to my bot. And then from this point, it's just as simple as, building anything you would in Power Automate. So you might look for like get record from CDS, for example. And you'll just have a get record action, point it to your database, your table, put, full the information, and you would just respond back with whatever the value is here in your respond output in the value, and then the bot can read that. So this one's being a little slow, so I'm just going to fake it. You get the point, right? I'll just say 9 to 5 in my response, and we'll save. So this is kind of just like a dummy flow here, just to show the case here. And then when I'm done, and once it's done saving, all we have to do is click close, and it will navigate us back there to our bot. Come on.
So, since you mentioned, they popped up CDS there, are they totally rebranding CDS to Dataverse, like in all through
Yeah.
Dynamics and everywhere? Okay.
Yeah, so it's officially Dataverse now. They just haven't updated, obviously, as we saw there, everything yet. It takes a while.
Right.
There's so many places where it's referenced. But okay, so that is created now. So now it didn't add it automatically to my agent. But now if I go to call the action, it'll see that I have a related flow for that. So now I see my Power Virtual Agents flow template, which is just what I called it. So that will actually call the action. And then in this big block, I can return the output of that by using this variable. So you see now that since in my respond action from that flow, I created a response called store hours. I can pull in the store hours from my flow and get it dynamically like that. So now instead of having that big long block of text that we saw before, if I test this chatbot out after it saves, it'll just return 9 to 5, which is what I typed in manually into that action. So there we go. It's got to update my chat. So we'll do store hours. And there you go. So it says 9 to 5, call my flow, return the message and all of that. So pretty simple and straightforward. Right. Anything else? I don't know. I can't really see the chat here, so.
Well, Jerry's question was the last one in the chat, but I bet a few other people have questions and maybe just haven't, gotten off mute yet. But I would say everyone please feel free to chime in. I know I've been kind of leading with questions. April is really a great resource on a lot of areas. So if you have really anything, I consider just anything in the whole Office suite, she's great to ask about. So. Yeah, I think one thing I'm kind of curious about is like, so you could take one of your Teams apps and you can kick off a flow from it. Do you also design that Power Automate here in Teams, or would you go outside of Teams to design that Power Automate?
Great, yeah,
Makes
great
sense.
question. So we can do all of that in the Power Automate app for Teams.
Okay.
And this also recently got a big overhaul. It's been there quite a while, but they kind of fine-tuned it. So by default here, it's going to suggest some Teams related flows that you might want to build, right? So we can do everything. We can create any type of flow that we want and handle our approvals and everything. But it's going to show some, popular Teams templates like, and there's a few cool ones. So there's actually something neat to point out with this. So one of the things that we have that we can do in Teams is what we call a message action. So say you're chatting with someone, you might have noticed there's these 3 dots next to the chat that you can click. And then you have a bunch of options that show. Well, we can do these message actions with Power Automate now. So I've actually created one, and there's a few templates that we can utilize for these. So I didn't create them from scratch, I just used a template. One cool one that I like is the schedule one-on-one. So it's actually a flow if we look at it. So this is all in the Teams app here. So I can see my flow run details and I can edit the flow all in line here in Teams. But its trigger, so to do this is you have a special trigger called from selected item in Teams. And then you can do different actions. So what this one's doing is it's, maybe someone says they want to meet about something. You can click a button and it will pop up and here we go. Open up and schedule a Teams meeting all through this flow. So how that would work. So let me go to the chat here. Let's go to David, for example. So he wants me to, we'll just click on this random message. So you see we have these 3 dots and then we have more actions. So if we click on that, you see that we have all of these different flows that we've created. So I can choose, say, the schedule one-on-one, and it's going to use what we call adaptive cards. If you've used those at all within Teams, and we can interact all within Teams here, not have to leave. And I can type, okay, well, what's your subject for the meeting? So I'll just say like one-on-one with David. And then we can choose the meeting date. So it has an interactive calendar here and the time. So it might meet, let's choose, there we go, like 5:30, and then click submit. And that'll actually go and schedule a Teams meeting. So all just within Power Automate. So if I go now to my calendar, there you go. I have a one-on-one with David, Teams meeting scheduled on my calendar. As simple as that. So lots of things we can do with that. And that's a template out there again, so you don't have to code that yourself and you can use a template. The other one that I really love is this follow up on a message. So a lot of times we're in a meeting, someone's pinging you on something, you don't want to forget to follow up when you're done. You click this follow up on the message, pops up this, ask you when do you want to be reminded. So you can choose from 20 minutes up to maybe in a week. Submit, that'll pause the flow until that time period you designated. And then once it's over, you'll get a reminder just like we're seeing here via the Flowbot. So with Flow, we have this action called the Flowbot where we can post messages as Flow to users and into Teams channels. So we'll get this meeting message reminder where it pulls in the message and all the content, and we can click to view the message and it'll take us right to that so we can be reminded and we can respond in Teams. So lots of cool integration like that, all done with the Power Automate application within Teams.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody when I say that's neat. That is really neat. And you start to see some real possibilities. The possibilities start kind of multiplying quickly about what people could do with this. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
As it becomes easier to use and more kind of ubiquitous in organizations.
Another cool one too, since we're just in the Teams vein, not necessarily, Power Apps or Power BI related, but there's a new approvals application in Teams. So it's kind of your one-stop shop. Like if you're using Power Automate for approvals to get easy approvals. So if say you're working on something in Teams, you can actually create a new approval request directly in Teams and choose your approvers for the requests. Whether you want to require a response from all the approvers, if you have multiple and the details, and like add an attachment. So if like you quickly, maybe you're not using SharePoint or you just want to get the approval for Teams, you can upload a file, ask someone to sign off on the file that you're working on, and have that all done within Teams. And and handle those approvals, which is pretty cool.
That is great. So just out of curiosity, are there particular touch points or integrations with Power BI that you have seen in 2020 or that are maybe coming in 2021? I know last time I tried to, I think maybe it was 2019, I had a Power App inside of a Power BI report, and there's a Power App visual that works great. I could select a row in Power BI and have that kind of translate down to the Power App form to get the right record selected, it kind of visible. But then the one trick I know that was difficult was like, what if I then, I enter a new record in the Power App, but my report doesn't update, right? Because I've changed my data source, but I haven't refreshed my report necessarily. So I wonder if maybe some of those Dataverse connectors or something, like, if we get direct query to Dataverse, I wonder if that could kind of close that loop, right?
Yeah, and I think it's my understanding that should kind of close that loop with the Dataverse connectors for Power BI to kind of help that integration be a little bit more seamless, right? And then less clunky. Yeah.
Oh, neat. I saw there was like a Power Automate visual for Power BI too. I think it was in preview in October where you can like kick off Power Automates from a Power BI.
Yeah,
report.
that's pretty cool too. I don't have a demo of it, but yeah, it's just pretty sweet. I think I know it's still in preview, but I think that should be GA like before long too.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking down at the roadmap. I just kind of printed out the whole roadmap to see if there was anything else where they're kind of integrating, coming down the pipeline soon. But they're definitely overlapping more and more, aren't they?
Mhm.
Well, I'll just
Definitely.
I want to pause for a second just to, anyone have any questions for April about what we're seeing here in Teams or Power Apps or Power Automate?
I guess I've answered all the questions.
Yeah. I always have to, I know it's on a virtual meeting, I have to create a little dead air so that, people, it's hard for people to just jump in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we have more time, I could show some of that geospatial stuff that I
Absolutely.
talked about at the beginning. I mean, pretty straight. The screenshots kind of showed it all, but just to see it in a real life Power App could be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Most people on the call, I don't know if you want to use the raise hand feature, but are you building Power Apps at all? Or are you just mainly sticking to Power BI? Just curious.
I'll make a little poll.
Cool.
Let's see.
Yeah, so for the geospatial stuff, like taking the address input, for example, it'll just show up now as a control under this input header. And so at the very bottom, we have a new address input preview control. Fairly straightforward once it adds here.
Okay, I'm actually launching a poll here we haven't done this
Cool.
much in Zoom, but wow, we're getting a lot of responses. Way to go, group.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay,
Boy,
cool.
it's
So like
50-50.
Wow.
Oh, you can see it. Good.
Yeah. Okay, so it was 50-50, but it's all right. So good percentage of you are, so that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So maybe like seeing some Power Apps in action though, like kind of inspired you to want to use it. Who knows? Yeah, with this address input field. So how it works is you just start typing. I could type. Well, and it's not going to work for me, right? It's because I want to demo it, of course. It's supposed to like have IntelliSense and start typing and show that. Maybe there's a property I need to set. Well, we will come back to that. We'll look at the map one instead. So that's this media map preview. So that's the other geospatial control. So you can type, oh, there you go. It was just really, really slow. So it'll look like a drop down here and it'll show you some addresses. So you can select the address there and choose it. Yeah, and with the map control, you can point it, it can plot multiple map points. So if you had like an entity that had locations, you can point it, I don't know if I do, honestly, to the entity that has a location and show it, or like a single one. So I can just hard code some items in here and it'll plot the little map point there. So I actually think it's using the location feature to get my current location here on the map. So it's pretty cool. And you can then, interact with it, zoom in, zoom out, rotate it, reset, kind of change the plane there. So lots of interactivity that we can do here.
Can you get directions or?
I think this one is just for like plot points, but we
Mhm.
can do some, at that point, we can do integrations with the Bing API. So there's a connector here for Bing. So we can do things like directions and stuff with the Bing maps.
That's neat. Yeah.
And
So
that
would
one
you,
is preview, but it's not premium. So, you can use
Okay.
that in your Teams apps.
for those of us who maybe aren't as familiar, would you mind stepping through the different licensing tiers just before we run out of time today for Power
Yeah.
Apps? And yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. So we have a what we call a seeded license of Power Apps that you get with your Office 365 licenses. So, Business Premium, E3, E5, and all that. What that seeded version will get you is kind of everything that I'm showing you right now is included in that seeded version. So really the main data sources that you can connect to with that is any of these connectors that we're seeing here that don't have the little diamond next to it that aren't premium, we can consume those. So as you can see, we from a database perspective, you're really kind of limited to Excel or SharePoint. Or they're pretty much the two data sources that we can use. And of course, any of these other connectors, like we can call Outlook, we can call Teams and Planner and all of that stuff, anything that's not premium. But if we want to do something like, well, we don't really want to use SharePoint as a data source, maybe we want to use SQL Server, right? Or Dataverse, those are premium functionality. So we have to go to additional Power Platform, Power Apps licensing. We have two models there. We can do a per user, per app, per month model, and that's $10 per user, per app, per month. The per app per month is a little bit deceiving because you actually get with that model 2 Power Apps applications in that license, not just a single one. So yeah, you basically pay $10 a user a month, and that's licensing that user up to use 2 distinct Power Apps in your environment. Another important thing to know about that is that also gives you the ability to call flows from your Power App. So if I had a button here, for example, that I needed to, when I click it, go start an approval process or whatever it might be, whatever I'm doing in Flow, and maybe that flow is doing something premium, like it's calling SQL Server, an HTTP request, whatever it might be. I don't have to pay double for that, right? I also get the correct licensing to call that flow from my Power App. Now, the next one is, so say maybe you have like 50 different applications that you want a user to use in your environment. That $10 per user thing doesn't really make sense. So we can do just a straight per user license, which is $40, and they can use and create an unlimited amount of Power Apps applications with that license. Licensing is a little bit murky. I do wish the team would kind of borrow more from Power BI licensing and how they approach it. I think it would be a lot easier, but that's how it is today.
That makes okay, and that's consistent with kind of how I how you read it, and it makes what you're saying. I think is like for that per user per app, you actually get 2 apps, but that means you could kind of use a flow behind the scenes along with the app. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. As long as the
Okay.
flow is kind of being executed from your app.
Gotcha. And but if you are doing this inside under that umbrella of Teams, you don't really get the premium connectors, right? But you do get a Dataverse connector. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say? Okay.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
right now, if I'm building this here outside of Teams, Dataverse does have that. I wonder if it's still Dataverse or CDS. In here.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably common data service. Yeah.
So this is premium. So I would have to pay, but if I built this same application in Teams, I wouldn't have to pay to use Dataverse.
Gotcha.
And another big one is you can't, forget Azure API management. So that's another one. Here we go. API. That's another one that's premium here, but not premium in Dataverse. So if you need to call a web service, or an API, as long as you're consuming that and using Azure API management to host it, then in Teams, you don't have to pay extra. So
Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that. Huh. Well, one thing I would just like to put in a quick plug for, and if anyone has any final questions, please go ahead and get them in either by chat or just unmute and jump in. But I know I have taken Power BI reports and put them into Teams, and they get a really great response whenever you do that. So you can get a conversation going with 2 or 3 colleagues, name that conversation, which is really nice for keeping your conversations organized, and then add a Power BI report right into that. So a lot of times when I'm developing a report, I've got a little chat, the Power BI report's right in there, and we're talking about it while we're looking at the report, and people don't have to remember what was the link or which version did you put out there. So Teams, I think, is probably, I'm guessing of course they're expanding the functionality almost exponentially, but I'm guessing most people just scratch the surface, really use the tip of the iceberg. So it's a very flexible product.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Well, with that, April, I just want to say thank you very much. That was excellent.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Great slides, great videos. And Ty put in the chat there a couple of links for April's YouTube channel and her LinkedIn page. Just like he said, tons of great content there. So subscribe to that, please. And please also don't forget that our user group, we'll keep our same YouTube channel, even though they're switching the Dynamics platforms. So you can subscribe to that too. And I'll try to keep sharing out videos as I find them. Sometimes I watch it and I go, that was great. And then, a day later, I'll think, I should have shared that with the group. So I'll put that Guy in a Q video in there, and I'll put, this, as this one gets processed and uploaded, I'll get it in there. Yeah, and then Lauren, you might notice there, Ty just puts a response to you there in the chat. So don't miss that when the meeting's over. But again, thank you, April, and I want to say thank you to everyone who came. For February's meeting, we'll try to put together. I have at least 2 speakers lined up. We're going to try to do one of our more all-day affairs of kind of like 10:30 to 3, and have some time for fun. It's come and go. So if you feel like you need to come for part of it or not others, that's fine, no problem. It'll all be recorded and probably put up as separate videos. And but we definitely look forward to having you then. And yeah, everyone's welcome. So I'll try to get the information out early. And feel free to repost on your LinkedIn. That always helps to really invite people. I think people see it on LinkedIn and Twitter and places like that. So yeah, okay, well,
Yep.
With that, if there's no other comments, I just want to say thanks everybody and hope you have a wonderful end of your week.
Thanks.
Thanks, see you later.